Hey there, this is Jaxie with the Systems Alliance, and in this video, I want to go over how video games are being talked about like they're causing addiction, but in reality, it's unmet psychological needs that are driving kids towards video games. There's an article on the website Near and Far, which I'll link to in the description below, that this video is based upon. But I felt it necessary to talk about it because, one, I don't think it gets talked about enough, the real underlying issues with kids playing too many video games, all that stuff that you hear, or people in general, adults, anyone playing too many video games. So it starts off saying that many parents are obviously concerned about their children and their obsession with certain video games, mainly right now Fortnite is the big culprit that's causing concern for many parents, and they're asking whether or not their children playing Fortnite is okay for them. And then it goes on to say, of course, that yes, it's fine that your kids are playing Fortnite. It's fine if you play Fortnite. It's fine if anyone plays Fortnite or any other video game. Playing video games inherently does not cause addiction. Now, obviously, I've made videos in the past about games that will reach out to people who are already inclined to become addicted to things like gambling by instituting monetization schemes that can rip the player off with gambling type schemes. But the overall sentiment of this article is focusing in on just video games in general and how kids, adults, anyone reacts to it. It says that Fortnite is the latest example of some kids spending too much time playing certain video games. But the main thing is parents need to understand why kids are playing so many video games in the first place. So this is something I really want to make sure is clear here, and they definitely address it under the paragraph titled Addiction. Really? They say the word addiction gets tossed around quite a bit these days. It's not uncommon to hear people say they are addicted to things like chocolate and shoe shopping, but if it isn't causing serious harm and impairment to daily function, then it isn't an addiction, it's just an overindulgence. And this isn't just about semantics. An addiction involves a lack of control despite adverse consequences. That's a huge difference right there. Parents may worry that their kids are addicted, but if the child can pull themselves away from the video games to having things like dinner with their family, socializing with friends, playing sports, then they aren't addicted. And video games seem to be taking the blame recently because currently video games tend to take the place of doing things that parents want them to do, such as chores and helping around the house and doing their homework and stuff like that. But kids have been avoiding these type of activities well since before video games, and parents have been complaining about their kids being unhelpful around the house since well before video games. Before video games, it would be that they're playing outside too much or they're doing something too much. It doesn't matter. Kids just don't like doing, no one likes doing work. I don't like doing work now. I'm an adult. Why would I want to do work? I'd rather have fun. Blaming video games for that is not really the right course of action, nor one that's really thinking about the actual problem at hand. What video games really are in this situation is a scapegoat. It then cites a study done by a professor at Oxford that actually shows playing video games, even daily, can be beneficial to kids. The study showed that playing at least 1 hour a day was beneficial to children and even enhanced psychological well-being. That being said, if you played over 3 hours per day, it did show a more negative effect. So then the question becomes, what makes video games in general such a draw to so many millions of people, kids and adults alike? And why is it so difficult for even people who are not addicted to video games to step away from it and do things, I guess, that they don't want to do? Kind of step into Maslow's hierarchy of needs a little bit, but more at the top of the chain in this one, because then it falls into what kids and other people are looking for psychologically, but they're not getting from their current lives. It says Fortnite, like any well-designed video game, satisfies the needs that we're looking for. According to 2 doctors in another study, people need 3 things to flourish. We look for competence, the need for mastery, progression, achievement, and growth. Might sound familiar to you if you've ever played a video game. We strive for autonomy, the need for volition and freedom of control over our choice. Once again, something you've probably seen in a video game, especially RPGs and multiplayer games. And finally, we strive for relatedness, which is the need to feel like we matter to others and others matter to us. And when you think about the modern state of childhood, especially in the Western world and here in the United States, kids really aren't getting enough of this nowadays. People in general aren't getting enough of this nowadays. So just think about school, where kids spend most of their waking hours. It's in many ways the absolute antithesis of a place where kids can feel competence, autonomy, and relatedness. There, kids are told what to do, what to think, what to wear, where to be, and what to eat. Alarms and bells orchestrate their movements as teachers go on, in many cases, about topics they couldn't even care less about. If they're bored and they want to go, they're punished. If they want to learn about something else, they're told to be quiet. If they want to go deeper into a subject, they're told to stay on track. And as I said before, this isn't every kid's experience in school, not even here in the United States. There's obviously many good schools that your kids can go to. But overall, this is how many kids feel. This is how many schools are run. And this is why it can be difficult for teachers to motivate kids and for kids to find themselves motivated to do anything in the classroom. Gamers feel competence when they practice strengths to achieve their aims. In a game, players can have the autonomy to call their shots and try new creative strategies to solve problems. And some people might say that, well, actually, the programmer set the parameters, so really they're living in a box. Well, let's think about this a little. If I can go run around in circles in real life, and I can go run around circles in a video game, but in the video game, I can't jump 10 feet and I can't fly, well, guess what? I can't do that in real life either. So the fact that there's physical limitations in a game don't really differ from life. The only difference is I can run around a video game whenever I want. I can't do it in real life whenever I want, especially when, as I just said, most of the kids are in school and they're told to be sitting down all the time. Games are also social outlets where players can feel relatedness. So obviously in Fortnite, you can meet before the game, after the game, talk to everyone, but I'm just even going to use Xbox Live, PlayStation Network. It comes with a mic, and that's how you meet a lot of friends. That's how you make friends. That's how you talk to people. That's why there's YouTube channels where you just watch people play a game, but you're not there to see them really play the game. You're there for the commentary. So if there's good commentary, if there's a bunch of people laughing, telling jokes, everything like that, that's what people are really striving for, and that's what they get from playing video games. I know my friends and I, well, we can chat for hours even after we're done with the game. Forget the game, we're just having fun, we're just talking about our lives, talking about whatever it is, cracking jokes. It's just fun. We just happen to be doing the same thing, which just so happens to be a video game. A lot of my friends and I, we don't live near each other, especially after a bunch of moves. We're all over the country, so this is really the chance for us to get together. It's a lot more fun and engaging than, say, a group phone call or watching each other do nothing on Skype. That's not as engaging or fun as playing a video game together. Something else that might play into it too is the way kids are raised nowadays. I always hear people on the radio talking about how they grew up and they're either part of, Gen X or the baby boomer generation, and they formed their close social bonds and were allowed to play after school. Parents didn't even know where their kids were, especially before cell phones. He'll come back home at night. That's how it was. Like there was no knowing where your kid is. That wasn't even a thing back then. And if you're a parent from one of those generations or a grandparent, you know how it was. You just let your kids run off and you did whatever. It was great. But now everyone has to know exactly where everyone is at all times. Before, just be home before midnight and go do whatever. Sometimes you might call over, is he sleeping over your house? Yeah, Johnny's sleeping over our house. Oh, okay. Like there was not even any plan set up many times. But a lot of kids today are being raised by, unfortunately, fearful and overworked parents, who many insist that their kids attend a regimented after-school program or just stay locked at home. Not literally locked at home, but basically you're at home. So really, adults shouldn't be surprised that kids and people today in general react to the confinement that they're in nowadays, yields behaviors that we don't understand and don't like. Games are satisfying psychological needs that other areas of their life aren't satiating anymore. There's a reason why they're reacting like this to games. There's a reason why they're, quote, addicted to games. They're just getting what they need psychologically that they aren't getting in their regular life. Now, the other thing here that the article says is that video games aren't necessarily a good substitution for any of these things. While they provide them, it's much better to get these things in person, to be with your friends in person. I can tell you, as a gamer, it's so much more fun, even if you include video games, when your friends are sitting right next to you, when you're actually socializing with them face to face, than it is over a microphone, over the internet, playing games online. It says Fortnite, and really any video game, can't come close or even compete with the exhilaration that you get from completing real-life tasks and unlocking mysteries of the real world and accomplishing things on their own in the real world. Similarly, no social media sites like a Facebook or a Twitter, despite all the interesting conversations and people you may meet on there who have similar likes as you, can give a kid or anyone else the same sense of relatedness, safety, and warmth that an adult just being with a child and showing affection and loving them and letting them know that unconditionally, all these things that I guess people refer to as parenting, but that can't come close to actual parenting. And if parents aren't around or unable or whatever the situation is or just aren't doing it, then this is where the kids are going to turn to meet those psychological needs. Then that's not as great as great parenting, but it's better than nothing. And as I said before, some kids do suffer from gaming addictions, but in reality, such dependencies are often coupled with pre-existing conditions, including problems with impulse control. And once again, just because of that, it doesn't abdicate companies from their moral responsibility to not be a bunch of jerks and rip kids off knowing that they're just getting them addicted to gambling at a young age, or really anyone, even if it's an adult, getting them addicted to their gambling schemes within their game. None of that's acceptable. But obviously, this is sometimes what you get with the current state, and obviously in separate videos, that's why we have to change that. But that's a separate issue. So really what we need more of is parents and people understanding why children are doing this and then getting involved. And by getting involved, I don't mean taking away those video games. No, I mean playing the video games with your kid, understanding why they're playing, supporting them. Because in doing so, they won't need to play as much. Or they might feel, hey, let me put this down, I'll take out the garbage. Who knows? Thinking about it this way also helps parents get into kind of a rational mindset, something that a lot of parents may not be in when talking about this subject, instead of succumbing to hysterics and moral panic that our parents used to get into when they want us to stop listening to rock and roll or watching MTV or playing pinball or reading comic books. All those things that your parents said. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed with the way parents react to the things their kids are doing. The only thing that's changed is the medium in which they're using. Today's generation, instead of all those things, are playing video games. In addition to that, I'd say it's pretty fair to say that just as many adults are probably addicted to their cell phones just as kids might be addicted to video games. And obviously more adults are a lot more addicted to their cell phones and social media than other adults are addicted to video games. So to me, it's kind of like coffee. Coffee is an addiction. Coffee is a drug. Caffeine, it's a drug. If you need it to wake up in the morning, you're a drug addict in some form, obviously. It's not a hardcore drug, but it is an accepted drug. Kind of like alcohol. Used to the extreme, obviously alcohol very harmful, but caffeine, no one seems to have a problem with it, whether it's tea, coffee, soda, energy drinks. Our society seems okay with that addiction because it's an accepted addiction. But new things like video games that haven't been around nearly as long, those things scare people. Or if it's something that's so widespread like cell phones, well, I'm not addicted to my cell phone. People are addicted to their cell phones. But it's still a very small percentage that are addicted to their cell phones. As this article pointed out, you're only addicted if you can't pull yourself away and it's preventing you from doing something safe. So in other words, if you're so addicted to your cell phone that you're texting while you're driving and you crash into someone, yeah, you were probably addicted because you thought it more important to do that because you shouldn't be doing it, but yet you still gotta check that phone and text while you're driving because you gotta have that connection, which actually might go back to what this is talking about. That's the way a lot of people feel connected. So while that's a different subject, you can see the similarities. People have the need to feel connected at so many levels. Sometimes it's so strong that they will pursue that as opposed to the other thing they probably should be doing, whether or not it's simple stuff like taking out garbage or more important stuff like driving. Not to mention when you're surrounded by 24/7 news coverage of all things terrible, sometimes you just want to escape for a little. And video games obviously provide a great outlet for that. Instead of repeating the mistakes of previous generations with heavy-handed tactics, you need to understand the psychological source of the issue. Ultimately, parents should be helping their kids learn strategies for coping with the overuse of playing video games so that they do what's good for them even when their parents are not around. By teaching self-regulating habits and promoting intentional gaming, as well as providing suitable alternatives when they're not playing video games, parents can then help their kids find what they're really looking for. Now, keep in mind, everything I'm talking about here is assuming your child is actually in normal health, whether or not it's your child or it's you. Obviously, people can get depressed, they can do all sorts of things, and depression right now in America is at an all-time high. It's like a fifth of the population or something like that has been depressed or is depressed currently, and our society isn't really great at dealing with that right now. Once again, a separate issue, but the article here is talking about a generally healthy person. If you or your child or whoever is playing video games for days on end, and we're not talking about the release of a new game where all their friends are just obsessed with it for the first week or whatever, and they're not actually addicted to gaming, they might be dealing with something else. So video games can actually still provide a clue if you've already gone through the self-regulating and everything like that, and all of a sudden you see them playing like 12 hours a day or whatever it is, they don't even leave the house. That could be a sign of depression, but that's something that needs to be looked into separately. Like I said before, studies show that a moderate amount of playing games every day can actually be helpful and definitely not hurtful. I mean, if you're playing games for 3 hours a day, that's a good amount anyway. And for that not to be hurtful and could actually be helpful, that's something that we need to recognize as well. The key is looking out for symptoms of excessive use. And when you open a dialogue about how much is too much, this can empower someone to help take control of their habits themselves. One suggestion is to make time to watch them play and even play yourself. Become their biggest fan and let them become an expert at something. A lot of parents have their kids, oh, you gotta play the piano or you gotta play the violin. Well, if the kids don't actually like doing that, what are you doing? That's not what they want to be an expert at. Why are you pushing that? Sometimes it's great. Sometimes the kids like it. Always try that stuff out. But if they already have found something that they want to be good at, why not champion it? Letting them coach you through a game will give them the feeling of competency that they need while strengthening your relatedness to them. But it means you might have to be vulnerable. If you're one of those many adults or parents that struggle with tech overuse, show them that. I'm sure many people who work on a computer all day, their eyes get a little burned out and they just need to relax, or they want to put their work phone aside and just relax. Show them the effects that has on you, and then work with them to set their own limits for what would be something of a healthy balance. And when you let them do it, it prevents you from imposing more rules. And as we all know, kids love to break your rules. But what kids don't like to break necessarily are their own rules. And I know this article is, once again, aimed at kids, but in reality, no one likes breaking their own rules. It's much more fun to break someone else's. But the main thing is, if kids see parents as being on their team instead of an obstacle to their needs being met, all of a sudden you have an adversarial relationship that starts to change. When kids see that parents are not necessarily trying to stop them from having fun, but rather help keep things in perspective with the right proportion, you then go from enemies to allies. And that's kind of the point I want to make here with this video on this article. This seems to be a massively misunderstood thing in the gaming world, and it's been going on forever. It just happens to be games now. I mean, Will Smith, parents just don't understand. This has been going on forever, and much longer before even that. So let me know what your thoughts are on this. Are you one of the kids who's playing video games who wants a way to express this to your parents? Once again, show them this video, show them the link to the article, have them read it. Maybe that'll help them understand. If you're a parent, did this video help you understand and relate to your child and get where they're coming from and make you realize, oh wow, I'm just like my parents. Video games just happens to be the new medium. So let me know your thoughts on this. Leave a comment down below, like, share, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.